And welcome to Smart Art. I am just looking to see whether things are going live. I'm not 100% sure. I've got this in the way. Don't worry, that will vanish soon. I just thought I would do a temporary, just a little tester on our sketch-along, live sketch-alongs. So I'm sending this off now just to see basically how this works. Our proper one will be happening next Thursday, so a week today. I had thought that today I might be a little bit hungover to be able to do this, but apparently I'm okay, so yay. So what I'm going to do is I have got some garlic in front of me here. I'm going to pop that on my little jar thing next to my easel, and I'm going to sketch along. And what I'm going to do is basically explain what I do as I do it. So hopefully it will be of some help. I'm going to be using willow charcoal because it's one of my favorite mediums to use. I will be using kitchen towel to blend. I do have a blender around here somewhere which I had put down and have somehow lost, which if you have been to my sketch along things before, you'll know this happens frequently. I've got a putty rubber, and that's what I was looking for, a little softy blender. So we've got a variety of things that I might use to help with this little sketch. I'm not planning on sketching for too long, but let's just start off and see where we go. So if you have any questions for me, do pop them in the chat and I will answer them as we go along. So let's get cracking. 1st of January, first sketch of the year, hurrah. Right, let me change my cameras round so that you can see what I have in front of me. This is my sketch thing. So this is a small piece of Strathmore mixed media. That's what I'm using to sketch on. Let me put up a photo for you because I took a photo of the garlic so that you can easily see it. Poop, there we go. Oh, let me just move that out the way. Actually, then it's sort of what I'm seeing is it over there, but I'll pop it over here. And I'll put on my little circle camera because then I can explain to you what I'm doing. If you have any questions, like I say, drop them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them. Let me move that way a little bit. So let me get cracking. So what do I do when I start sketching? Good question. So what I tend to do is I start with shapes. So I've got my willow charcoal and I'm looking at my garlic, and I'm just also looking at where you can see this. I'm just going to adjust my camera ever so slightly so that it's got a little bit more, you can see a little bit more of the actual paper. I'm going to just mark where the boundaries are on my camera. That way I know where to place my garlic and you can see it. So that's not part of my general sketching. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I do is I kind of look and see, okay, what's my garlic is over here. So not above me, as you can see there. I'm trying to think, actually, let's see if I can just maybe alter this garlic a little so it just gets out of the way just a touch. When I do this next week, I might have figured out how to do that a little better. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at the garlic and I'm going to do a rough, I'm going to use my squidgy thing because that's a good measurement because it's solid, and I thought the garlic was probably wider than it is tall, but actually it is kind of a squarish shape. I'm going to start with my top. I'm just going to block out basically where that garlic is going. It's kind of square, so let me see, is that kind of square there? If I'm doing that, I want to bring it down to about there, and I'll just block out what my basic shapes are, and I'm going to be looking at what I can see as shadow shapes. So I'm squinting my eyes and I can see there's a really dark shape there in between the two bulbs of garlic, and then it kind of, there's lots of layers. This is a very stripy area here where you've got all the layers of that garlic, and this is quite dark here, and it's kind of dark coming around, and again here too. And I've got some, this is kind of stripy and it comes across, but I'm looking to see where my shapes are, and I'm kind of all the time looking, squinting. You'll see me doing this a lot, squinting away, thinking where are my rough shapes, and I just want a rough idea of shadows. So my shadows are sort of, this is the purpley bit at the top here, and that's kind of quite a nice area because that's kind of darker than the bit below it. So I'm just going to smudge that a little bit with my finger and then put some more dark on top. So what I like about charcoal is it's kind of a layering. You can really push those layers, and there's a darker bit under here actually. So we've got some contrast going on, because here we've got a bit of the I don't actually know what it's called. Is it the layers, the paper-like layers, the outer layers of the garlic? There's some that kind of come up, and we've got some interesting shapes. This is probably what made it look wider than it is long, because we've got these interesting shapes of the I'm really going to have to figure out what that stuff is called, aren't I? The layers, outer layers of the garlic. And this is kind of shaded. And this bulb is definitely in the shadows a bit more. So I'm going to just block some more. I'm going to make that considerably darker, because actually in this as well, this is in shadow too. So I'm going to put that in shadow, and then I'm going to kind of really start looking at where the sharp lines are and darkening it out a bit. And actually this bit here comes out a bit further. I've not got that quite right. We've got a bit that comes in here and round. There's some lovely shapes in this garlic. I really like it. And again, this is the darkest shape. There's a little bit lighter in there, but I'll pull that out with an eraser later. I just want to get some basic ideas in and really start putting in shadow shapes. Honestly, squinting so much right now, because actually this comes down a little further if I'm looking at my squinting away. And I'm probably going to make this top bit a lot lighter than what we've got underneath. This is quite dark round here too. I've got lots of kind of squidgy bits coming on here. This is all kind of at the top. And that's dark too. So we've got some interesting shapes now. So that's kind of just a quick basic shape. So now what I want to do is really go in there and darken a little bit more. But what I also want to do is start pulling out some lighter areas. So we've got some lighter areas in here, and this is kind of being pulled out. And if you notice, I'm looking at, you know, what is the direction of those lines, and I'm definitely pulling out the shapes in the direction that those shapes are in, so that I'm following the form as I'm pulling out these lighter shapes. It's a really nice light shape there. And now that's beginning to give it a bit of texture, which is nice. And we've got really, this bit under here is actually super, super dark. That's a bit under here. This putty rubber isn't the best. I think I've pulled the wrong one out. Here we go. This one's a little bit more malleable. That's better. You get that. Not all putty rubbers are the same. So I'm looking at where my shapes are. Where are my lightest areas? So my lightest areas are here. And so right on the edge here is quite light. But I think the best thing I can do to really get the lightest bit of this area here is actually to put some shadows in. So I'm going to pull out another bit here. And it's starting to appear, but what I think I'm going to do is actually darken the background, because what we've got is then we can really have the light side of this garlic stand out so much more if it's got a slightly darker background. And here, this is super dark because we're sat on this sort of tin thing here. I'm not going to draw the tin because I don't really want to get into that. I'm concentrating on the garlic, but just to give an idea of it is actually sat on something can sometimes be quite helpful. Now I'm going to use my softie just to soften out. Oh, I've had some pastel on this softie before. I didn't check to see if it was a clean softie. But I'm just using it just to really blend out that background. And I'm going to use the eraser again just to pull out the edges of this pot that it stood on, because I think that gives a nice touch. And this is a really highlighted area just here. And now we can use that background to help with our shading. And we can go in and reiterate our blocks of shade and start to bring this garlic out. And what we've got now is kind of like a mess. It kind of looks all scrumbled together. These parts of the drawing, so you just think, I wonder if this is actually going to work. Of course it's going to work. It just takes a little while sometimes to come through. And of course we're building all these charcoal layers. I'm just looking for shapes. And this actual thing that it's sat on is actually very dark. So I'm really going to pull that out and make it look quite a lot darker than it actually is, just so that we've got this contrast. I'm going to use my kitchen towel to blend a bit here, because the grease in your finger tends to take more off. And I'm going to go back in with my highlighter, my razor, and just bring in some that. Now we've got a little bit more form, and what I might do actually is grab a charcoal pencil, because a charcoal, what I've got here is a General's charcoal pencil, and charcoal pencils are great because you can start to really bring in some harder edges, because it doesn't blend as well, which is great. So you can get some really nice contrasty things going on, because all this is just lovely. What we've got here though, on this outside, I've got to remember that's actually quite a bit lighter than this area here. And at the moment we've got it as being quite a bit darker, so I probably want to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pencil just to see where I am. I'm going to bring this background down a bit as well, because this comes up much taller, doesn't it? And we've got the scrumbly effect at the top. I love a good scrumble. And you'll notice I'm not holding the charcoal pencil like a pencil as such. I'm holding it further back, and that's because I want to have some freedom of movement in here. I'm not drawing like this. I want to get some movement and really create these lines organically almost. So once I've got these in a bit more, this will actually help me, because when I come to lighten that top edge, the bits I've done with the charcoal pencil are going to be much hard. They're not going to blend as well. So you're going to get those kind of left. And this here is very dark as well, actually. Let's put a bit of dark edge on here. Just bringing that down just to get a better look at what we've got here. So let me just switch over a moment and see where we are. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to lighten up this area, because this is nicely in shadow. We've got a nice little area here that's just a bit, it's kind of a, pull this down using my softie. Gives a different texture, the softie, which is really quite nice. And just add some extra tones in there. But what I want to do is this purpley bit I want to leave quite dark, but now what I want to do is pull out a lot of what we've got on here and make it considerably lighter than our darker edge here. We do have some that is darker there, but what we've got here is we've got some super light highlights. And so I'm just going to squint and bring these highlights in so that we're looking as if this is the bit over the top and this is knocking this back. So we've got these highlighted areas. And what we've got here is this is quite a, we've actually got a little extra bulb shape here, so we've got some a darker, this is what's giving the form to this area here. So this seems a little bit, I don't know, there's not enough contrast here, I feel. So I'm actually going to darken this down a bit more. And put my softie on. And what that's done though is it's taken away some of the kind of line-like feeling, because it's almost like there's sort of veins running up. So I'm going to use my pencil to help with that, and then we've got some lighter areas coming in like so with some darker hints. Again, just looking at shadows and just playing with how they work. And looking at contrast. So we've got some sharp edges on these form shadows cast by the shadows of those outer layers, and those are quite sharp where we've got the contrasts. Pull out some lights down here. And so we're starting to get that feeling now, oh, pardon me, of form. And what I want to do is, this has got some lovely shapes to it too, as it moves round. Let's knock that back a little bit. And there is this lovely kind of leaf shape in here. Now all this area which I'm lightening up here is actually not that light, because this is the bit that's the lightest, the bit that comes out here. Jumps around. I'm going to add a little bit of darkness around here. It's looking at where are your tones. So what we've got here is under here is so, whoops, helps if you have the pointy end down, so much darker. And we've got some bits that are pulled away. I've got little bits that are coming out here too. Just kind of following that form. This is all this purpley bit here. And again, I'm following the shape of those veins, etc., that we're seeing on the top of that garlic. You can kind of carry on with this for absolutely hours, you know. That's why sometimes I like to set a timer and say I'm only going to draw for 5 minutes or 6 minutes or however, because otherwise you really can just be completely taken in and you're there forever. Which, I mean, I have to say I do quite like, because, you know, who doesn't like drawing? But you do need to do other things as well. So I'm starting to get an idea of that garlic coming out now. And it's just a matter of looking for shapes and then pulling those shapes out, either by using an eraser or popping shadows back in where you see the shadows, and that just really starts bringing things to life. There's some wonderful triangular shapes in all this as well, which is lovely. You can see all those layers. Right, so if you think about the form and how those lines converge, if you always follow the lines in the way that you can see them when you're actually drawing, this will help you hugely, because it informs how things then develop. And I kind of dot around and I kind of look at, okay, what have I got? You know, where are things placed? And you kind of start at the bigger shapes and you move down until your shapes get smaller and smaller. And as long as you keep thinking in shapes, then it isn't quite as traumatic. You know, not that art should ever be traumatic, but it sometimes is. So you're just looking for, like I say, what are my shapes? I've got this really nice triangular shape coming on here. I've got some nice curves. That's lighter than the area behind it. That said, there's some nice shadows here. There's some really funny crinkly shadows going on, which is super. And at some point you have to say, I'm done. You always see things that you want to correct and keep going. But the thing is, when you're doing a sketch, you have to kind of remember what your purpose is. And if your purpose is, I want to just practice observing, I want to do a quick, you know, sketch of where things are. This isn't, at the end of the day, a sketch is not a finished painting. It's an idea, it's a looking at, observing, and just spending the amount of time you have available, whether that's an hour, a day, 5 minutes, whatever that is. The length isn't important, it's you actually getting out there and doing it that's the important bit. I want to take that back a bit because it's not quite that. And that's just having those 5 minutes just to do a quick sketch and give yourself that time. it will help your art practice no end. And it's actually really good for your well-being, you know, mental health and all that sort of thing. There's nothing nicer than sketching and just sitting down with a pen and paper and just working on a design. Let's darken that up a bit. And I think we'll stop pretty much there, because otherwise I'm going to carry on all night, as is my wont. I do tend to do that quite a lot. And like I say, at the end of the day, this is a sketch. It is not a finished piece. Although it could prove an interesting one. I might put some colour over the top of it later. We'll see. So I'm going to give it a stop there. So that is my little garlic. And I hope you've enjoyed sketching with me. There will be, let me turn these things off a second. Boop, boop, and that. And move that out of the way. And I will see you next Thursday on another live sketch along. I'm going to be doing live sketch alongs the first Thursday of every month at this time. So 7 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. UK time. It will last maybe half an hour, might be an hour, however long. But I would love for you to join me. It would be really cool. And if you're thinking, I'd really like, you know, something to sketch or do, I do have a sketch club where I send you an email of a sketching prompt every Monday and a little bonus once a month just to help you along with, of course, our live sketching prompts. So I will disappear off and I will see you hopefully next Thursday for the first official live sketch along. Okay, I'll now figure out how to end this broadcast. Bye, and Happy New Year!